Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Awakening Potential Show, your gateway to the extraordinary. And today we're featuring Rex Sikes, who has mastered turning everyday moments into milestones of wisdom through combining the mental, spiritual, and emotional aspect of one's life as nutrition. I could so relate to that. I love that. Rex transformed his life after a skydiving accident, and he now, after 4 decades, has experienced helping thousands of people transform their minds and their lives. His innovations include mind design, the attitude activator, and directed questions. Rex embodies the transition from ordinary to extraordinary, making him the perfect guest for today's exploration. Rex is a father, author of the book Life on Your Terms, and he's an actor, trainer, and so much more. He's extraordinary for sure. Join us as we delve into his transformational journey and glean insights to elevate our own lives. Let's embark in this enlightening journey together. And a warm welcome once again, Rex. Welcome back. Rex
Thank
Sikes.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It is such a treat to be here. I appreciate you and I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate the people who will watch this. Not only watch it, but hopefully they will spread it around. They'll share it, they'll comment, they'll engage, they'll take some form of action with it and help other people to uplift and to edify their own lives too. So I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here. So thank you for being a part of that. And I feel so aligned with you. Excuse me. I know last time we spoke, we had some technical glitches and it was going in and out and everything else. And I was glued to it going, oh my God, he's my guy. He's my kind of guy, And I just love our conversations. And you are extraordinary. But you didn't start out extraordinary, right? We are, well, let me reframe that. We all are extraordinary, but we didn't know we were extraordinary. We started out in that little ordinary space going, how do I get out of the muck? So what's your story? What got you started in it? And then we can work our way up to, um,
Well, it's a great question. I talk about it a lot, and I do talk about it in Life on Your Terms a little bit. Why I wrote the book and how I came to transformation. But I've been reading. I asked my mom when I was about 6 years old if she would read the philosophy and religious and thought leaders, spiritual books around the house because as a Catholic with a Catholic upbringing, I thought this priest, these bishops had some kind of connection with the dude upstairs, right? So I'm like, I want that. So what do I need to know? And I always wanted to be an actor. So it's at least two of the things I fulfilled in life. I never wanted to be a father. And thank God I'm a father. I mean, it was the most remarkable, transforming experience in my life. Did it twice and have amazing, marvelous, incredible children. So adult children now. But that to me is the crowning glory of everything is to not only have brought these lives into the world, but to watch them, flourish or go through whatever they go through and to participate in their lives is just, I don't think any greater joy. So at least for me. So that to me is, more important than almost anything. But I also, to some extent, feel like, the world is my family and that there are people who I know and don't know yet, kind of thing. And so my goal or my mission has been to reach them and to treat them like family members, to be approachable and to be available and to be a participation in helping transform lives, whether they're close to me or far away from me. Um, so from an early age on, I was reading Napoleon Hill and Joseph Murphy and Bhagavad Gita and different books, and my mom was reading them until I was able to read them myself. And around the age of in my 20s, I've had a lot of crises. I mean, nobody, people think, oh, you must have this charmed life, and I do have a charmed life, but that doesn't mean it's devoid of situations, circumstances, events, or people that some people would say are problems or obstacles or whatever. I think they're all gifts. I mean, they really are in that. You mentioned, mind design. We can talk about that later, and the attitude activator. So here's something that's truly important. I developed a program. You listen to it with headphones, and you go on a journey of finding your best self. Going back. Uh, we're all born amazing, and then we get kind of conditioned out of that amazing, and we find that we have beliefs or limitations, that seem to hold us back, or we wonder why we can't do things, or So we're looking for answers and solutions and methods and strategies and how-tos and hacks and shortcuts and everything to make our lives better. And for about 50 years, I've been preaching the value of or sharing the value of attitude. And the reason why it's called the Attitude Activator is because you must activate your attitude. We don't necessarily come by it naturally. And
Exactly.
so whether that attitude is curiosity or fascination or playfulness or loving kindness or compassion or massive confidence and security, and power, whatever the attitude is, there's an appropriate attitude for what it is that you want to do at any moment in your life, and that's based on context. So sometimes you want to be serene and relaxed and let go, and other times you want to be, ramped up and pumped and persist and see your way through it. And wisdom means you know which to use when, and then the other part is do you have access to it or not? A lot of people don't. So what they do is today, people say, oh, there's po toxic positivity. Or if you focus on something or say, just have a positive attitude, they go, oh, yeah, right, Miss Pollyanna, rosy tinted glasses thing. And
Exactly.
my thought is, what's the alternative to feeling good and thinking positively and powerfully and getting things actually accomplished and done and getting the results that you intend to get because you're willing to do whatever you have to legally do without harming anyone else, but to do it in order to make it happen. And so there are countless examples in the world of people who overcame incredible odds to develop amazing inventions and to benefit us in all sorts of ways, or people who've overcome incredible health challenges, like yourself and other people, who had difficulty. One of the people I write about in my book is Jamie Nieto, a two-time Olympic champion, been to the Olympics, traveled all around the world, was injured in an accident in 2016, quadriplegic. Prognosis was he would never walk again, and at best, he might be able to feed himself one day.
Mm.
Well, I found out it happened in April. I learned about it in October. I sent him a message. I called him up. I left him a voice message, and I messengered her on Facebook or something. And a while later, he messaged me back. And I said, Jamie, if anybody with your mental conditioning, with your attitude, with the intentional way you've deliberately um, fashioned yourself as an Olympic athlete, you of all people will be able to walk and move and do the things that you want to do again. And he went, well, as a matter of fact, things are starting to happen. Well, 18 months later, he fulfilled a dream of his, which was to walk his bride down the aisle unassisted. So
Mm.
in 18 months, he went from quadriplegic, who they never thought would walk, who could only move his left pectoral muscle, to somebody who walked his bride. It was no easy task, believe me, unassisted. And today he's doing better. He just posted something on Instagram of him going up some stairs and stuff. So he's reclaimed his life. He's living his dream. He acts, he writes, he produces, in Hollywood kind of thing. And he's
Love
got his bride is an Olympic athlete as well, and stuff. But the cool part is we got together last May, and he said, "Oh, I want to show you something." He handed me his phone, and I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Look," and it was the message that I had left him in
Mm.
2016 is still on his phone. He
I
says,
love that.
"I listened to that, you know." And I'm like, that's what attitude is about.
Yes.
He knows what it means to do what he had to do in order to be an Olympic champion. He knows what it means to have a career in the film business. He knows what it means to try and get up in the morning and walk, because most of us take it for granted.
Exactly.
But with him, because of what he's gone through, he has to use an intentional, thing to be able to do things. And as he does, he's retrained his brain and his body to respond, which, and he's not the only one. And the fact that there's people like yourself and other people who've been able to do this should tell you that the people who go, you know what, I'm going to do it, have a different kind of attitude than the person who goes, I'm never going to be able to do this again. Oh, my
Yeah.
life is over. So attitude is no small thing. And yet most people just go, yeah, whatever. But you have to activate it. You have to deliberately get in there and do something to make sure that every moment that you are awake, that you want to, that you have an attitude that supports who and what you are to do who and what you want to do, or what and where you want to do it, and with whom, in order to get the kind of results you want to get. So
Yeah.
there's no substitute, and yet people ignore it.
It so fascinates me, and it's so great to be having this conversation because that's truly how I got through my accident.
Right.
And recovery is like I just didn't see myself as that, that I wouldn't be walking again, that I wouldn't be, whole, in the whole night. And it was challenging, I mean, you yourself had an accident. How did you obviously did you know about when you had your accident? Did you know about attitude? Because I mean, personally, I look back on it now as we're talking, and I don't recall thinking, okay, this is attitude that's going to get me through it. It wasn't a conscious thought, but I knew it was there.
Well, it's such a great question because the answer is yes and absolutely not. No.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew about it. I knew about it. I've been reading books. I've been reading Napoleon Hill every day since I was 6 years old.
yeah, I love it.
I knew about it. And Satish Verma, who owns the rights to Think and Grow Rich, he is Think and Grow Rich Institute in Toronto, which is a worldwide organization, said to me, he said, Rex, very few people will tell the truth. He goes, but you tell the truth. And we're dear friends, and I love him. But I told people, I said, look, at about 10 or 11, I started reading on my own.
Right.
In my 20s, about 10 or 12 years later, I had this crisis, and I realized I lost everything. I lost my friends, I lost my career, I lost money, I lost my self-respect, my own self-esteem, my own whatever.
Sure.
And I had a problem with substance abuse based on a prescription drug. They gave me a fatal combination of prescription drugs. And so I took the drugs, and instead of dying or going into a coma, the doctors thought, well, you're a medical miracle. When I came out, I didn't know what had happened, and I didn't hurt anybody, but I'd been acting so bizarre and so weird that I lost everybody. I lost a girl who I loved and wanted to marry and everything, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. And so then I started drinking and taking other drugs in order to try and resolve the grief. And that
Yeah.
went on for an extended period of time. And then at one point, I tried to kill myself. I just said, this is enough, and I jumped out of a window.
Mm.
So fortunately, my parents had been traveling and they were there, and they decided to lock me in my apartment, take the distributor cap off my card, and prevent me from going anywhere. They decided whether or not they were going to put me in an institution of some form. And I knew I needed help, but I didn't know what to do. And I felt just so desperate and so lonely, and I mean, just really miserable. And by the way, people who are far worse than I am. But for me, this was truly, a point of what I thought it then was no return.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped the drugs cold turkey, and my parents eventually had to leave. So I locked myself in my own apartment and said, I'm not going to leave here until I can go out and face the world and feel good and live a productive life and get my friends back, maybe even the girlfriend back, kind of thing. And so I sat in an easy chair and I did everything I knew that I had done but hadn't done routinely, like affirmations and visualization and all that kind of stuff. And I was there between 6 and 8 weeks, and about 3 weeks into it, I was sitting on a chair. So when you asked about attitude, I was like, oh, why did this happen to me? How could I be so stupid? Why on earth? Why would God or the universe or whatever do this to me? And I've lost everybody. And all I realized is about 3 weeks, and how long is this going to take me to get back and everything? And about 3 weeks into it, I realized I don't really know. I don't really care.
Mhm.
Knowing why it happened or who was responsible, or, other than myself, wasn't going to fix anything. And how long it was, I don't want to know how long it's going to take. I want to know how soon I can make these changes. And so I realized I'm asking myself all the wrong questions, and I'm making all these horrible statements, which are affirmations, and I'm declaring myself as stupid and dumb and a loser and all these things. And I had this epiphany that I needed to do it differently. And so I started to ask better questions, like how quickly can I get out of here?
Yeah.
Where in me do I have the resources to be able to change? How can I find them? Where can I find them? Where in my body do I feel the very best?
Yeah.
What kind of things can I imagine myself doing that I haven't imagined yet that would lead me in productive ways to go out and meet my friends? How much confidence can I find so that when I meet people out in the street, I can feel good and speak to them with ease? Those were the things I wanted to be able to accomplish, and I hadn't been thinking about it in that way. I'd been thinking about all the things that were wrong and why I was broken and how things had broken and how they wouldn't work out, and imagining continued disaster. But when I had that moment, everything started to change. And so for the next 3 or 4 weeks, or 5 weeks, whatever it was, I stayed in the chair. I continued to work that way. And when I did go out, I went out like a toddler, learning to walk. I wasn't like, "Brr." I had those moments, but I was like,
Right.
okay, you know,
Yeah.
kind of like, but I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could get out. And I knew that no matter how hard it might be, I could find a way, like water going through, the desert cuts the
Right.
Colorado River, no matter what it encounters, whether it's walls or rocks or trees or dirt, water has a way of moving and being flexible. And that's what I had discovered. And it was the attitude that got me through it. It was the attitude that said, Rex, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You've learned stupid things and you mastered those, so you can learn some useful things and master those too. You're not broken. You work perfectly well. You just didn't get the results that you wanted. So let's do this. Let's go. Let's make it happen. And I started at that point to share what I had discovered with people, and anybody who would listen, I'd go, hey, you know what? I found this way of doing things. So I at the time I had been teaching acting, and I started to include this in the acting classes about attitude, about your mental states, and I had a great knowledge, a background of thought leadership from books and everything I'd done in my life. I'd been in hypnosis and taught hypnosis and a public speaker and entertainer since I was a child. So I put all this stuff together and started doing weekend programs and workshops to help people because I was so thrilled by going, look, what I could, if I can overcome this, you can overcome anything that you're faced with. And guess what? I've been doing it 50 years all around the world, people changing their lives, transforming their lives, they're directing their minds. So I created this thing called Directed Questions. My program became Mind Design because it was how do you make your mind so marvelous that the outside life pales by comparison so that you can get through any circumstance, get through any event or situation that is difficult or uncomfortable or seemingly impossible for you. Any people who are a challenge or a problem or whatever, you can navigate, your way around or learn how to better communicate with them. I hate this thing about people go, well, they're energy vampires or they're this and they're that, as if the other people are wrong. And I get it. I mean, I understand that there may be people you like or don't like, just like you have a favorite color and a least favorite color. You might say, well, I don't want to be around those people.
Yeah.
I'm not ever saying you have to be, but if you think about Jesus or enlightened people, I didn't hear Jesus going, well, forget the prostitutes and the taxpayers, tax collectors and the sinners and everything. He ministered to them,
Right.
and enlightened people are surrounded by unenlightened people all the time, and they don't go, well, you guys are a bunch of losers. I'm going to go hang out in the desert by myself. So it's like, don't let things that would stop most people stop you or prevent you from living an incredibly fabulous life and connecting with all sorts of people and overcoming the circumstances that you might find challenging to go, like I said, I've had lots of crises in my life, but it hasn't prevented me from doing what I'm doing. And if you get knocked down, get up.
I love that. I hear so many words of wisdom and jewels in there, Rex. One of the things that really jumped out at me is the power of choice.
Yeah.
When you were sitting in that chair, right, you didn't know it was their attitude. The mind is a very, very powerful tool, right? And it gives us the ability to think differently and asking the right questions. I had the same similar come up when I was going through my divorce. It was like I wasn't familiar with Louise Hay or law of attraction or any of that stuff. I was victim. I was so victim. And I remembered I had these little because I'm in the world of creativity, I have a lot of sticky notes. And I started writing my own affirmations, and I didn't know they were affirmations. It was just like, there's got to be a better way. There's just got to be a better way. And the more I said it to myself, the more my mind started searching for that better way. So, we all have circumstances, we all have challenges. And I love what you did to shift your mindset in a sense and really step into the world of attitude, being your friend to carry you and make better choices in your life and then asking the right questions. So I love the thread from ordinary, for lack of better, to extraordinary. And now look who you are in the world, because I don't know about you, but for me, it's always being of service. Once we learn these lessons, everything is a lesson, right? It's not like the world is happening to me. I'm grateful for those experiences. They sucked going through it. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them were very painful. but I've learned from every single one of them. And now I'm giving back. The more I have these experiences, the more it's like, you don't want to feel this. Do this, not that I'm telling them what to do, but
No.
but that's really what I'm hearing for you also. You really are giving back on a whole nother level as a result of the victim and the circumstances and so on and so forth.
Yeah, in order to be a victor, I think you need to know what it was like to be a victim. I mean, in order to be a champion, you have to know what it's like to have lost. Uh,
Exactly.
so that people say in order to be happy, you need to know sorrow. So, yeah, I think that's true. Um, it certainly is in my life. The One of the things, and I'm going to say something that may turn people off, and that's fine. But I don't ever pretend to be the person for everybody. It's kind of like there's a scripture that says, he or she who can hear, and he who, see. So not everybody that comes to you will dine at your table. So,
Okay.
but if they want to come and dine, then I'm more than willing to have them come and dine. The invitation's for everybody, but fewer, it's like many are called, but fewer are chosen. And it has nothing to do with me choosing. It has to do with them choosing. But
Exactly.
the thing is, as an analogy, some people believe that it is a literal historic truth, and some people don't. And I'm going to say, I don't care which it is that you think at the moment. I'm just using it as an example.
Mhm.
I used Jesus before, so I'll use Jesus again. On the cross, which was a very painful, horrible, horrific death, totally miserable, by all accounts, he's alleged to have made 7 statements, but, he essentially said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. I'm like,
Exactly.
in the worst moment of his life, God or not, real or not, whatever you want to decide, the story is he goes, forgive them. They don't know what they do.
Right.
And when the one, other person who was crucified with him said, well, you're son of God kind of thing. He said, well, you're going to see paradise with me today, you know, and he said, into your hands I commit my spirit, your will be done. Kind of, he had these statements. The point is that he didn't go, oh crap, how did I end up on this cross? This hurts, mother. I'm never going to get out of this. This, oh, screw them all, damn them to hell. It
Right.
was forgive them, and to have that kind of presence of thought for yourself too. Forgive
Exactly.
yourself, forgive others, allow them to be. They don't know, even if you think they know and they're calling you names and they're telling you what you can and cannot do, they're doing it out of their own unawareness,
Exactly.
and that's, I think, the message in this. It's like, so don't be unaware and then start labeling and criticizing and fighting back, because what you resist persists. You
Right.
just get into this kind of struggle. So it's easier to release and let go and surrender. The other
Right.
thing is, it goes back to attitude, and that is, it is a choice, because we're conditioned to not have good attitude. We're conditioned to pay attention to our problems and our circumstances and what's wrong. And when you meet most people, they either complain about the weather or the politics or God or the religion or something in their life, because misery loves company. So they're
Right.
not out there championing what can be done. So you have to learn to choose to activate your attitude. You have to learn to choose to reframe a situation as Pollyanna do, and look for the good in things. And the reason for that is because through our conditioning, all our brain does is what it knows to do. It doesn't sabotage you. It doesn't thwart you. It's not your enemy. It's your friend. It's there to keep you alive, to keep you thriving, and to help you do things. But it does it in a very particular way. You
Absolutely.
use the least amount of energy to do anything, and
Mhm.
it runs off of habits or patterns, or consider it like audio tape recordings or something. They're the same thing that go over and over and over again, and there's hundreds of them, but they work together, thousands, millions of them, but they work together to keep you consistent, because you don't want to wake up one day and go, hi, I'm so and so, and then the next day think, oh, I'm Barb, or I'm Tom, I'm somebody else, or oh, you know what, I always like pizza, and then the next day you don't like pizza, you like something else, or you forget how to open a door, or you don't know how to use a spoon. Because so we've learned these habits of behavior. We've learned our habits like brushing our teeth or washing our face. We've learned other habits like chewing hair or biting nails or criticizing oneself. I mean, they're just habits, and they're
Exactly.
all done as smoking is a habit. The brain doesn't think of smoking as good or bad. It just does what it does. And then the person goes, I want to quit smoking. And the brain goes, well, you smoke, you smoke, you smoke, you smoke. The person goes, I want to quit, I want to quit, I want to quit. And then they say things like, I don't want to smoke. I don't want to smoke. I don't want to smoke, which means the last thing in their head is smoke, 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 smoke. And the brain goes right, 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 right. And it
Yeah,
keeps doing what it does until you learn to train it differently. So the analogy I always use as a horseback rider, you understand it, is if you get on a horse and you don't know how to ride, the horse will take you wherever it wants to go because you don't know how to control it. You don't know what to do. You're scared, you're feared, you're worried, you are. Horse goes where you want to go. But if you're a trained rider, you direct the horse where you want it to go and it takes you there. And that's what you do have to do with your brain and your attitude. You have to
absolutely.
direct your brain to take you where it can take you because you can't do it consciously. It will take you, but it won't take you if you don't train it. And most people never train their brains. They never train their attitude. They just live on default. They live as that victim, so they never know how to be a victor. They live losing, and they don't know how to be a champion. Jamie Nianco know how to be a champion, and if I've done interviews with him on TV, he's in my book. If you listen to what he says, it was the certainty. It was developing the muscle memory so that when the starting gun goes off or they do it, his body took over, the habits took over, the conditioning took over, so that he could do it without because you can't think your way into a sport. You have to have all of your training in
Right.
that moment. And lastly, I'm going to say, but consider this, and this is what most people will never do unless they decide to. The Olympics happens every 4 years. And in order to get into the Olympics, you have to be top of the line athletes, unprofessional athletes. You have to have trained and competed and done everything so that you can qualify. Now you get the Olympics. Let's say you're a runner and you run a mile or a minute or I mean, people wait 4 years training and conditioning themselves to be able to perform for 8 seconds, a minute, you
No,
know?
yeah,
I mean, some play longer, like a basketball game or something. But the point is, a high dive. How long does it take to jump to the top of a dive to the pool? That's how long it takes. The longest it takes is climbing up the diving board. If
exactly.
they condition themselves day in and day out, attitude and their behaviors, they eat right, sleep right, do the right amount, kind of things, to be able to compete for that dive. And they get to do it 3 times, and it's done. And if they don't medal, they come back 4 years later if they're lucky.
Yeah,
That's the attitude of a person who's a winner and a champion. The other people go, well, at first you don't succeed, try again. And then what? Quit, give
right.
up, go to plan B. You're never going to win that way.
Exactly. Exactly. Love that. I love that. Thank you. That was a perfect analogy too. So, one of the things uh, I had mentioned at the start was the mental, the spiritual, emotional aspect of one's life is nutrition. I talk about that all the time. It all goes together. And please, your take on that. I would love it.
Well,
Aside from,
it's thank you. I mean, the opportunity is wonderful, and I love chatting with you both on and off the air because it's always enlightening, and you contribute so much and add so much value to me, and I appreciate that, and thank you for that. Um, there's a difference between spirituality and self-improvement, and I don't believe in things such as self-improvement, but we use those words because how do
exactly,
you improve on perfection? You know what I mean? You're already perfect. You just forgot it. You don't know it. So it's
exactly,
really not, you're not really adding anything to yourself. You're just kind of releasing and letting go. It's releasing the David inside the marble, the statue that's there that gets chipped away, that kind of thing. So it really is, spirituality is more of a releasing, a letting go, of a forgiving, of allowing and acceptance. The only way that you can even begin to do this is to increase awareness. Because if I put a kick me sticker on someone's back and they don't know it, there's nothing they can do about it. But if they become aware that they've got a sticker on their back, they can remove it. They can throw it away. They can let it go.
exactly.
And so that's really the way we need to go through life. When you become aware, this is why our hardships, the obstacles and the difficulties in life that most people want to avoid and never have happen. They want to have comfort and they want to have luxury and they want to have these things. Those are all like alarm clocks for us. They're like, hey, something's wrong and
Exactly.
you need to be aware of it so that you can change it. And yet most people, instead of going, what do I need to learn in this situation? Go, how do I change this? What do I do to fix this? How do I overcome that? The bank is foreclosing on my house. How do I make the money? Where do I make the money? Instead of what is it that I need now? What is the lesson here? Is it that I'm focused on lack? Is it that I'm focused on difficulty? Is it that I'm stingy, or I don't want to, I'm not, I mean, what is it? Am I not generous? Am I not somehow full? Because until it's like if your shoe is rubbing on your ankle and you don't know it, it creates a blister. But at some point you become aware of that blister. And you go, oh my God, I got a blister on my foot. Well, you know what the good news is that blister was there to protect you. And the pain is there to signal you that, hey, maybe you need to put something in your shoe or wear a different pair of shoes for a while instead of
Exactly.
going on. The reason why we have nerve endings in our body is so that if we stick our hand on a stove, we don't burn our bones off. We go,
Right.
and then we complain about being burnt instead of going, what a miracle it is that I saved myself from burning myself, my fingers off. I mean,
Exactly.
but we've been conditioned to look at the problem, not at the solutions. And sometimes the solution to our problem is the problem because we're so busy trying to find a way to not have the problem that we just don't relax, release, let go, forgive, and accept what's going on and so that it can change. If you're always doing this, at some point you have to do that because otherwise you're just going to stay in that struggle. So
Exactly.
when you decide not to participate in the struggle, and people are always like, well, how do I let go? I go, how do you drop anything? You know, how do I drop this? Well, you let go of it. Well, how do I do that with my emotions? Well, you let go of them. In other words, just sit and allow.
Exactly. Exactly.
But if they don't know, they can go to you, they can come to me, I'm happy to help, in whatever way, because I understand that because people are so caught up in the way they've been conditioned from society, their
Exactly.
parents, and God love them. My parents were great. Did they do everything perfect? No. Or, I was a screwed up kid, not because they were intentionally trying to screw up. And some people may be intentionally trying to screw you. I'm just saying that, we all are amateurs when we become parents. We're all amateur humans on the planet.
Exactly.
So, instead of blaming yourself or blaming others, go, okay. That was the cards I was dealt. Now, how do I play the best hand?
Absolutely.
And it
Attitude.
goes back to attitude. So, but
Exactly.
spiritual and the difference for me between self-improvement and spirituality is the spirituality is like being on the ocean floor. There's a lot of pressure on the ocean floor, but it's calm, it's quiet, it's dark, it's you're separate from stuff. You're at the core kind of the bottom of the ocean. And the waves on the top can be turbulent or they can be calm like ice, just glass, and all that kind of stuff. Self-improvement is trying to deal with those waves. The spirituality is falling to the bottom. It's going to the depths of who you truly are.
Oh, yeah. It brought me back as you're talking. It brought me back to the moment when I was in Costa Rica, laying in the hospital bed there after my accident. And I got my God bumps. Um, I remember I went there. There's always a lesson for me. And I said, okay, God, I know there's a lesson for me to learn when I go to Costa Rica. And right before I got on the plane, the word surrender came up for me, right? And I was like, okay, all right, I'll be with that. And then when my accident happened, I was sitting there on the ocean on the beach, and the waves are like hitting my legs, and you go into this shock, whatever mode, and I'm looking at it and it was surreal. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't move my feet, I can't move my legs. Like, okay, this is serious. But instead of thinking, oh, woe is me, as the way it was surrender. Be with what is so I can think clearly and then choose my next steps from there. And it was surrender. The whole time I was laying in the bed, it was surrender. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Because not only when I was surrendering to it, but it really did open up the space for me thinking clearly and allowing thoughts to feed me and come through and guide me in that space. And I love your analogy about laying, I'm a water person anyway, but laying on the ocean floor because it was just being in the flow of it was very soothing and comforting to me because I was alone down there. I didn't know anybody and I don't speak Spanish. So surrender to that as well. So,
Well, I mean, that's such a great point that you make because you know, people spend most of their time trying to figure things out so that they can feel better, be better, have more money, do more things, that they don't feel that they get. Instead of going, wow, I am so lucky, barring neurological or physiological, difficulties and things like that, even that. There's a guy, I can never say his name, but people know who he is. He has no arms and no legs. He's a motivational.
Nick Novoglovich, yep.
I can never say his last name.
I met him. He's an amazing
Yes.
individual.
But he says, how people always ask him, how can you be happy with no arms and legs? And he goes, how can you be unhappy with arms and legs? And that's this thing that we'll say, oh wow, I get to do this. Like, think about your career, and you go, do you like what you do? And you go, yeah. And then think about, I get to do this, not I have to do this or that's my job, but I get to do this.
Exactly.
Same thing is true about your difficulties. I get to go through this challenge and
Mhm.
discover what is on the other side. The nobody likes a micromanager. Nobody likes somebody who's controlling and telling you how to do things. My son, who I talked to last night, said he was in this job and they had all these rules and regulations. He said, oh, it's really crazy. And he said, none of us really like it, but you got the job and we got to do it. Well, so think about it. If we all thought about that for a second, we don't like to micromanage, we don't like to be controlled, and rules and regulations may be necessary in some cases, but we don't necessarily like them. Um, then why are we trying to micromanage and control and have rules for our life that just make us more miserable instead of making us happier and more blessed and more grateful and more thrilled and more delighted and more enthused? And and people say, well, you can't be happy all the time. And I go, why can't you?
Okay.
Well, this happens. And I go, and what? Well, then you have to do this. I go, okay. Because if that's what you think you have to do, that's what you will end up facing. If you
Absolutely.
think something differently, you would end up doing something differently. It's like, if you have to go to the right, then you go to the right. You'll find whatever on the right. If you have to go to the left, you go to the left. If you can choose between which one you want to go, then you got a couple of choices. If you say I can go left, I can go right, or I can straight ahead, or I can back up. Now you've got four choices. Well, choose. Choose something that works instead of it upsetting you and disempowering, and keeping people down. But they don't. They're people just don't. Those people who are in the self-improvement, that's their interest in personal and professional development, and the people who provide it, they get it. But the bulk of people may never have heard this stuff, or they're
Mhm.
told in some religions that they're wonderful and incredible, in other religions they're told they're horrible and not so good. So people come to whatever they come to when they come to it.
Exactly.
Like some people wake up with an alarm clock, and some people wake up just naturally. Right? Everybody wakes up at some point.
Right.
So it's like, okay, the whole world will wake up. Let me just say this. When I was a young guy in Los Angeles, I had a tea kettle that didn't have a whistle. It didn't work. You
Mhm.
know? So I'd go into the kitchen, I put it on the flame, and I'd go sit in the living room. And later I'd hear all this noise, the water's boiling. I'd run in there, and it wasn't boiling. I'm like, it's really noisy, but it wasn't boiling. So I'd sit there and I'd wait. And then I'd finally pour my tea. And it took me a very long time to realize that water is noisier before it boils than when it boils.
Mm.
So from 2007, 8, or 207, 8, 9, 10, 11 degrees, the energy coming from the heat activates those atoms and molecules, and they start colliding, and it gets louder and louder and louder as the energy.
Yeah.
But when it hits 212, it's transformed. There's a transformation that takes place, and it releases steam. And when it releases steam,
Love that.
it slows into a roll boil. It drops into a slow boiling, rolling boil. So it gets quiet.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, then I didn't run into the kitchen until I heard it get quiet instead of when it got loud. And our circumstances, the world is noisy, but it's there so that to let you know that transformation is taking place, that enough of the energy comes together, suddenly there'll be a transformation. So it's like an alarm clock wakes people from their slumber, intentionally, deliberately, you put it on so that you have a change of state. Well,
Right.
circumstances do that same thing for us. They're an opportunity to give us a change of change our point of view, our attitude, our awareness that, hey, you know what? We're doing it this way. Maybe we need to do it a different way. Maybe we need to stop, back up, go in a different direction. If you keep doing what you always did, you always get what you always got. I could still be running into the kitchen trying to use that tea kettle, but when I realized
Yeah,
that the noise, it gets quiet when it boils, I could change my behavior. So use our circumstances, our hardship, our obstacles, and our problems to learn how to be more of who we truly are or to be different from what we were doing. And life changes incredibly and in incredible ways.
love that. I love our conversation. I could talk to you all day long and not get bored. I
Well,
love
well,
that.
likewise. Thank you.
I do appreciate this because I get really, I think this is part of why I do what I do because I get so like, wow, like I love human nature and I love contribution and I love these high level conversations because we all can be having them when we choose. Yeah, and I chose a while ago and life is not always easy, as you said, but it's always awesome, especially meeting people like you. So thank you. Is there something that you would like to leave the listening audience with today? Because I could keep you here all day, but I know
Uh,
you got things to do as well.
well, I hope that what they've heard is if you think of something as a problem, it's going to be a problem. Our expectations shape our life.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
if you think of something as a blessing, it can be a blessing. So it's how you choose to think about things. Now,
Yeah.
somebody will say, yeah, but I hoped for this or I hoped for that and it didn't work out. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that happens too. And there are other times when you've been delightfully surprised when you didn't have, you thought it was going to be bad and it turned out better than you expected. So yes, anything is possible. But if you understand that science research tells you that attitude is the number one predictor for success in all areas of your life, that's health, happiness, your career, whatever it might be, that your attitude truly does determine your altitude. And so if you look at something as a problem, it's going to be a problem. So why not choose to look at it as a learning experience where I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I know that something good is going to come my way, and I just need to go through it and be there to unfold, as it unfolds. And I might be surprised, I might be disappointed, but that's all okay. We're here to live life and have it be an adventure. And
Exactly.
and if you want it to be adventure, there's like Adventureland and going on excursions and all. That means highs and lows. You don't want to go on an adventure that is like just boring and nothing ever changes. So
Exactly.
all the stuff that life gives us are opportunities, and we have infinite opportunities and infinite potential. You've got awakening potential is, infinite possibilities, opportunities, and infinite resources. So
Exactly.
if that's true, it only means you haven't discovered them yet.
Yeah.
So instead of going, all right, I'll try and I'll try again, that's the American thing too, first, second, third base, if first you don't succeed, you know. Um, we have in our culture, and at one time it was meant to inspire us to keep going, but at the same time, it's one of those things where people give up after a few tries. Just keep going. Just hang in there. Just enjoy and find a way to celebrate everything. And that's my motto, is my tag, is just celebrate everything. Because when you celebrate everything, everything can become a celebration
Love
be-
it.
because you look at it differently. You choose it. You don't let it dictate. You choose it. You tell the horse where to go. So celebrate everything.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you have a gift for our listening audience. Is that still
Yeah, absolutely. If they go to rexsikes.com, and the only way I can get you the gift is if you put in your email address. So, we have a newsletter that you get. It doesn't come too often, but it comes enough. And when it does, it'll tell you about good things and cool things and have tips and suggestions and all that kind of stuff. So you want to get the newsletter anyway. But if they do it, get a 22-minute audio MP3 that is absolutely free, but it's how to overcome the worst problems that you're going to encounter. So it's a thing that allows people, gives them the next step, and kind of like what we talked about today. But that's a gift. And there are other gifts and other things that they can find if they go to rexsikes.com. I
awesome?
also want to give them another website because there's stuff there too. And that's rexsikes.tv, like television, TV.
Right.
And I don't put that on Facebook because for some reason Facebook won't let me put that on there. There's certain problems, it's been changing, and so certain websites can get up and certain can't, and certain dots do and don't. But it's there. It's got videos. It's got access to my other sites and other things and programs and stuff. But go there and you'll see all sorts of stuff that is available for free.
Yeah, and as always, Rex, all your contact information will be in the show notes. So
Um,
anybody who is looking to get a hold of you, it will be there.
oh,
Uh,
good.
and Rex, thank you as always. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. And thank you for all your wisdom and insights.
Oh my gosh, thank you for yours and for your service and for all that you do and for the value that you add to all of the people watching now live or in replay or wherever they get it and stuff like that. You do a valuable service, and I'm happy to be here whenever I can be, with you whenever they invite. So thank you.
Thank you. You'll be back, I promise. For the listening audience, thank you again for joining us on Awakening Potential Show. And as we step back into the world, remember the bridge from ordinary to extraordinary is built with small steps of change and big leaps of faith. So to take today's insights from Rex and let it be a guiding light to navigate your own journey. And until next time, awaken your potential and illuminate the extraordinary within. Stay inspired. Bye for now.